Okay, welcome to the last grammar recording for the semester. In this chapter, we're going to be working with the entire chapter all at once instead of dividing it up into two parts because I don't want to give you any new vocabulary or new grammar for week 8. So I'm presenting everything to you at once in week 7. And we're not doing all of the grammar in the chapter. If I don't present it in this lesson, you're not responsible for it. Okay? So let's look at what you are responsible for. The most important vocabulary topic in this chapter are stem-changing verbs. You've already seen a verb that is a stem-changing verb. It was tener. Remember the yo form of tener is tengo, but the to form is tienes. The L form is tiene. The ellos form is tienen. That E changed to an IE. That's a stem changing verb. What they mean by stem changing is that the vowel in the stem changes to something different. And there's 4 ways that a vowel can change. E's can change to IE, or E's can change to I. O's can change to UE, and in one verb only, U's will change to UE, but no other U's ever change, and A's never change to anything. So what do I mean by they change? Let's look at pensar here as an example. Pensar means to think. Remember, when you conjugate a verb, the first thing you do is you drop off the AR, and that leaves you with the stem. In this case, the stem is P-E-N-S, right? Pense. Now, so you would think, if everything was going to be normal, that for the yo form, you would just add an O on there, and you'd end up with penso. But that's not what happens. The E changes to an IE. So instead of penso, you have pienso. And stem changing happens in all forms except for nosotros and vosotros, which I never test. So in the yo, tú, usted, él, ella, ustedes, and ellos, you'll see the stem change. But in nosotros and vosotros, you won't. So, yo pienso, nosotros pensamos. Tú piensas, vosotros pensáis. Ella piensa, ellos piensan. We can also have E's change to I's. Like, for example, pedir. You would expect to just drop the IR and have a stem of paid, but that E is going to change to an I. So you'll end up with yo pido, tú pides, él pide, ellos piden, but nosotros and vosotros never stem change. So nosotros pedimos and vosotros pedís. Now, you might ask yourself, how do I know if a verb stem changes from E to I or E to IE? There's no way to tell. You've just got to memorize these. You might ask yourself, how do I know that a verb stem changes at all? There's no way to tell. You just have to memorize them. The way that you would know is in your book or in a dictionary. After the verb, they'd put IE in parentheses, or they'd put I in parentheses. And that's how you know it stem changes. That's the only way to tell. The next type of stem changing you have is O to UE. So, for example, poder means to be able. You think you'd just be able to drop the ER and end up with a stem of pod, but no, it becomes puedo, puedes, puede, and pueden. But nosotros and vosotros never change, so podemos and podéis. And then the only U verb that stem changes in the language, U to UE, is jugar, to play games. Juego, juegas, juega, juegan, but jugamos and jugáis. So those are stem changing verbs. You've got a list of them in this chapter. The best way to study these is to make 3 columns on a piece of paper. Label one of them E to IE, List all of those verbs in that column and study those together. Make another column, E to I, list all of those verbs together and study them together. And then one column, O to UE, and study all those verbs together. Okay. More irregular verbs in this chapter. You have tener and hacer, which we already knew. They have the irregular yo forms tengo and hago. There are a lot, we call these G mutation verbs. There are a ton of these in Spanish. 3 more that you're going to learn in this chapter are poner, to put, salir, to leave, and traer, to bring. And their yo forms are pongo, salgo, and traigo. Pongo and salgo and traigo are regular the rest of the way through. So pongo, but ponemos, pones, pone, ponen. Salgo, but salimos, sales, sale, salen. And I wrote out traer for you because it just looks so weird. Traemos, traes, trae, traen. And then we also have 2 verbs that are just completely irregular in their yo form. There's no other verbs in the language that are like them. Sé, from saber, I know. En conozco, from conocer, which also means I know. So if we have saber, which means to know, and conocer, which means to know, that implies there has to be a time to use one and a time to use the other. This one is way easier than ser and estar. Saber is to know factual things, like sé el vocabulario, I know the vocabulary, and sé tocar el piano, I know how to play the piano. Conocer is to know people, and it's always followed by the personal a. What's a personal a? It just means that a person is the indirect object of the verb. Don't worry about what indirect objects are. And so to be polite, they put an a there. That's all a bunch of fluff. Just remember to put a after conocer. That's the important part. So conozco a tu prima, I know your cousin. Conozco a Maria, I know Maria. Those are people, so I have to use conocer. Now, saber and conocer are regular the rest of the way through. Yo sé, but nosotros sabemos, tú sabes, él sabe, ellos saben. Yo conozco, but nosotros conocemos, tú conoces, él conoce, ellos conocen. Totally regular without the Z. Okay? That's the grammar for this week.